Christian and his wife Beverly have lived through several big drops.
We watched our life savings go up significantly and then return down. So in the last year, we just really started to take the time to investigate what should we be doing. Because I'm tired of the roller coaster, I'll just be honest with you.
That brought them to Casey with Crown Haven Wealth Advisors.
It's been a long journey, but we're down to the last 2 years.
Like so many, the recession of 2007 and 8 set Rick Garland way back.
And we talked, and we had one meeting, and then we had another meeting, and then made a decision to move all my investments into Crown Haven.
But you're also allowed to participate in the equity market, and so over the last few years we've seen some really nice gains, and at the same time not had to worry about it plunging if the market went down.
We were worried about the stock market, and we know we can make a lot of money, but we can also lose a lot. So we went with a little bit safer investment with Casey.
And that's what Larry wanted. He wanted us to have the same amount of money so we didn't have to change our lifestyle, because that's what a lot of retired people have to do.
I'm Casey Marx, founder and CEO of Crown Haven, and I want to be the first person to welcome you to our headquarters. And thank you for coming in to spend some time with us today for your relationship visit. This relationship visit is the first step in our proprietary and trademarked Retire Shield process, and it's designed to be just the beginning of a relationship that we build together based on trust and shared values. In the old days, I'd have you sit across from me as I explained who I am, who we are, and what we do. However, as Crown Haven has grown into one of the premier wealth advising practices in the country, and as a result, my time has become more and more limited, with hundreds of prospective clients reaching out each week for a relationship visit, our firm has determined that the best way of sharing our history and the secret sauce that makes us one of the most revered firms in the country is through this introductory video. All jokes aside, I realize that watching a video may feel a little less personal than you would initially hope for, but I hope you'll understand that our reasoning for doing this is so that we can give you all of the information about us in a clear and concise manner, so that when you sit down with me in just a few short minutes, the focus can be solely on you. Creating this video has been one of the many efficiencies we've put in place at Crown Haven in order to make sure that you receive the same level of care and attention from me, the founder of the firm, as our hundreds of other clients receive, even as we continue to grow, as our success and yours continues. The purpose of this video is for you to understand who I am, why I entered this industry and founded Crown Haven in the first place, who we are, what we do, and how we can help you reimagine your retirement with our Retire Shield. I think you'll agree, like our hundreds of clients across the country, that when we spend time together in just a few short minutes, you'll feel like family. With that, we'll begin. After nearly a decade of helping hundreds of families step confidently into their retirement, there are many mornings where I wake up and I reflect on just how I was able to put myself in a position to be afforded the honor of doing so. And I think in order to understand where Crown Haven came from, you have to understand me. And that really comes from where it all began. I grew up middle class in a suburb north of Seattle, Washington called Mukilteo. And I was afforded a very nice childhood. We were not poor, but we were not rich. I like to say that I grew up adjacent to a golf course. And my dad, who was born in Sparta, Wisconsin, a very small town. In fact, when I went to see where he grew up, I actually drove through the town and then came back before I found it. He was very intent on living below his means, so very conservative mindset. I grew up in a good atmosphere, a very loving family, and I remember my dad telling me one day, hey, we're going to go down and buy some CDs. And I thought he was going to take me to Sam Goody, the local record store, and I was going to get, the new album. But he was talking about going down to, at that time it was Key Bank, to buy a certificate of deposit. And that tells you a little bit about my dad's investing philosophy. While a whole bunch of people where I lived, which Microsoft in the 1990s was putting people in bigger houses and they were getting rich on paper, my dad did not want to risk his life savings because he used to shine shoes on Fort McCoy to help his family who was, they were not very wealthy. His dad was a janitor and his mother worked as a nurse at a local ward, help his family. So he didn't want to risk money. My father was a great man, but he was also an unhealthy man. And when I was 3 years old, he had kidney cancer. He had one of his kidneys removed. And when I was 7 years old, he had a heart attack, which made him uninsurable. And so I remember constantly growing up kind of hearing about cash flow and his fears of what would happen in retirement and what would happen to our family and how they would pay for my college and all of these things. My dad was the first person in his family to go to college. He got his master's degree from San Jose State University. He met my mother in California, and then they moved to Seattle, Washington to start a family, and I was the sole result of that enterprise. I'm an only child. And when I was 15 years old, my dad passed away. And because of the fact that he was uninsurable, the funds that he left my mother were the sole result of what he had saved. And it's an understatement to say that our life circumstances changed. Thank God we lived below our means, but we had a mortgage and we had 2 cars, and my dad made about $120,000 a year at that time. And my mother made $20,000 a year as a paraeducator at a local school. So to say that we had an income gap is an understatement. I was an athlete. I played basketball and baseball, and I was pretty good. But I had to give that up and stop focusing on that in order to get some jobs in high school to help my mother. We had to sell one of our cars. We had to move out of our house. We had to do a lot of things differently. And I looked at myself as more of a partner for my mom than her son. And I wanted to go to Gonzaga University, which is a private school in the state of Washington. To this day, I still root them on in basketball. But that was not in the cards. And that's why I paid myself through community college, because that's all I could afford to do. I studied medicine, and that's what I wanted to pursue, because after my father had passed away, I had a lot of panic attacks. I held in my emotions, and they exposed themselves with anxiety. And I had spoken to a wonderful man who is now a mentor of mine that basically helped me get through that. So I said, I want to go to college to help people. I want to be in the medical profession, and I want to help grieving children like I was grieving. In 2008, as a junior in college, right before the recession began, I remember my mom was very scared because the markets were falling, and she reached out to me and said, I don't know what to do. I kind of want to put my head in the sand. And I said, Mom, you got to call our family friend, who his name was Don, and he was managing our money. That's where she had taken the money. She had done what many people do. She went to the person that she most knew best to help us with the finances, and he worked at Merrill Lynch, and he had said he had made an exception to work with us. And he had managed what my father left, which was about $400,000, which was a fortune to us. And it worked for a little bit. You know, my mom was able to take some income from it at 51 years old as I was going through high school. But then as a junior in college, we looked at our portfolio and said, oh my gosh, we've just lost 40%. And she called up Don's office, and she got his secretary, and he was not there. And she said, you know, what should I do? And the secretary said, well, Don's gone, but he's telling everybody just to ride it out. And she relayed this information to me, and as a junior in college, I knew that that was not an acceptable answer. And so at that moment, I decided to take the future into my own hands. And as a son who was raised the right way by his father, I felt like, maybe unfairly to myself, that I had let my own mother down, because I felt like it was my responsibility to protect her. And I never wanted that to happen ever again. And it quite frankly upset me that someone who I knew as a smart woman could have lost 40% of her life savings overnight because of something completely out of her control. And so I studied. I switched my majors. I put myself in a room. I locked myself in a room. I studied fundamental analysis and macroeconomics and wanted to understand why the market does what it does, the history of the Federal Reserve, subsequent legislature that was put into practice, the Stiegel Act, the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, all of these things. And I thought that by the end of studying all of this, I would be able to sit behind 3 computer screens like you see in the movies and predict the future. And I quickly realized that that was not possible. What is actually happening is that you have multi-billion-dollar institutions trading against each other, basically playing liar's poker against each other. And the rest of us on Main Street are just along for the ride. And I thought that was very unfair. On top of that, I realized that the industry itself was a fundamentally flawed sales industry, where my mother was not really getting any advice that she really needed help with. How is she going to have an income that she can rely on when she does retire? How is she going to make sure that healthcare doesn't derail her retirement? How is she going to make sure that she's not paying too much in taxes? How is she going to make sure that she doesn't have her money go through probate the way my father's money went through probate when he passed away? All of these things. She wasn't getting any of this advice, so I asked myself, why is she not getting this advice? And the sad answer was that she didn't have $5 million or more. If she would have had $5 million or more, she would have been considered high net worth. And if you're high net worth, guess what you get? You get income planning, you get tax planning, you get risk management, you get healthcare planning, you get legacy planning, you get all the things that people need. She didn't get that because she's considered in the financial world a mass affluent delegator. And a mass affluent delegator is somebody that wants to delegate their finances to someone else. They've got a little bit of money, and they're considered very low liability. And basically, they're thrown into the same mutual funds, stocks, bonds, etc. as everyone else. They're not really given any real advice, and they don't have any answers for any of these major questions that everybody needs answers to. And so I looked at this system, the way it was created, understanding that as pensions were dissolved and the 401k system was put into place, that people were basically forced into a risk trap. The fact that the reason that happened was payroll executives determined that they could save on average about 75% over the course of the lifetime of the employee, and in doing so create thousands and thousands of new clients for brokerage firms. And then the point A to B scenario, which used to be I work for 40 years, I retire, I'm okay. Now I work for 40 years, I don't know what's happening to my money, and when I get to retirement, we'll see, becomes the issue. You know, I looked at that and I said, this is a problem. In addition to that, because of the situation that was propagated because of how our financial industry was put into place as a result of all of these things, folks like you now are put in a position where they have to deal with a salesperson. So one of the most important decisions you have to make in your life, you're now dealing with somebody in sales. And the reason for that is because the financial industry is a fundamentally flawed sales industry. It's an industry where the measurement of success is not how well does your client do, it's how much money can you bring through the door. That's a major problem. And so, naively maybe, at my age, when I graduated college, I looked at this and I said, number one, I don't want this to happen to my mom ever again. But also, as an entrepreneur, I looked at it and said, there might be a business opportunity here, because what if somebody came out of left field and said, hey, all you mass affluent delegators out there, how'd you like me to solve your problem? Maybe if I do income planning and tax planning and risk management and healthcare planning and legacy planning, and I provide that to all of my clients, even if I make less money than the broker-dealers and the other advisors that are captive working for all of these other institutions, even if I make less money, do you think I might be successful doing that? And it turned out that I was right. So after a decade of doing this, I look back on it now and I'm proud. Because now I have a group of people that adhere to a code of ethics and a mission statement and a vision statement, which is all about ensuring that our clients worry less about their money and spend more time enjoying their lives. And our vision is to be the last advisor our clients ever need. And I'm going to talk about that in a second here. But the reason I got into this industry is because I get to live vicariously through every single client that walks through these doors and make sure that you have the retirement you deserve and enjoy this time in your life that you have worked so hard to get to. And it is my honor to do that. Next, we're going to talk about who we are. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about who we are at Crown Haven. Since 2011, our team of independent professionals has provided fiduciary guidance to thousands of families across the country, with total assets managed exceeding hundreds of millions of dollars. And we've designed our proprietary Crown Haven Retire Shield to mitigate and eliminate threats to your success and identify and take advantage of opportunities so that you can step into the retirement that you deserve. Our mission is very simple: to ensure that you worry less about your money and spend more time enjoying your life. The reason that you've come in today to have a relationship visit with me is because you don't really care about charts and graphs, things of that nature. It's because you want this to reflect positively back on your life. And we're aware of that. This is about your life. It's not about your money. It's about your life. That's why our vision is to be the last advisor that our clients ever need. This is for a couple of reasons. Number one, in order to get the value of the expertise that our team provides, you typically have to find 4 or 5 different professionals. A CPA to help with taxes, an estate planning team to help with your legacy, a financial advisor for investments, an insurance agent, etc., etc. Well, number one, you have to find all of those different professionals. You have to trust all of those different professionals. And then you have to trust that all of those different professionals are going to talk to each other. And in practice, I've seen over my decade of experience that this doesn't work very well. And even if it does, you have to spend a lot of time and energy quarterbacking that. And our clients at Crown Haven will tell you that they would rather spend their time and energy, which they have a finite amount of, on things they enjoy. So we want to be the quarterback of your retirement, meaning we'll help handle all of those issues for you. Additionally, we want to be the last advisor our clients ever need because of the fact that unless you've been under a rock for the past 30, 40, 50 years, you've probably had a poor relationship with a salesperson. And unfortunately, the financial advice industry is littered with salespeople. We would not have a business if our clients hadn't have worked with this advisor over here or that advisor over there, and it's usually been a poor experience. We want you to feel like you've finally found a home at a company that truly cares about your result and that cares about you as a human being. That's why these are our core values. And what's really cool about running your own company and creating it from the ground up is that you get to hire people and bring those people into your little world. And then those people adhere to those values as well. And if they don't get to stay in the world. Our first core value is to act with integrity. I respect my unique position to impact your life. If we operate under the presumption that I'm pretty good at what I do, and our clients think we are, then I can probably impact you in a pretty positive way if I act with integrity. If I don't, then I can probably screw your life up. So we're very, very cognizant of the fact that our job, first and foremost, is to act with integrity when it comes to your retirement. The second is we're going to stay true to our mission. That means everything we do is going to be with the mindset of allowing you to worry less and enjoy your life more. That also means we're going to be transparent We're never going to hide anything from you or omit information. And all of our planning is going to be purpose-driven. It's going to be logical. It's not going to be emotional. We don't want you to make emotionally charged decisions. We want you to make logical decisions based on data. Also, every plan we do is going to be personal. You came to this specific moment in your life with a unique life experience. You've got your own life story. You probably have your own dreams and aspirations and wants and needs for the rest of your life. So you deserve not only a custom-tailored plan, but a team that understands that you are a unique individual and will service your unique needs. The fourth is probably one of my favorites. It's under-promise and over-deliver. I am never disappointed when somebody gives me more of a good thing. I am always disappointed when somebody says they're going to do something and then they don't do it. And usually that's the end of the relationship for me. So we are never going to exaggerate. We're never going to tell you something can be done if it can't be done. We're always going to level with you. And we're going to set ourselves up to exceed your expectations. We commonly get calls from clients that are enthusiastic, wildly satisfied with what we've done because of that fact. And this is all because I view my clients like family, and we're going to protect you like our own. I never imagined in a million years when I first started this that we would get to where we're at. I started this company as a result of my desire to help my own family and protect my mother. And now I get to live vicariously through all of you, all of my clients. And just like you're looking for an advisor that cares about you and your needs, we're looking for clients that appreciate the fact that we're doing that. And the reality is that we don't have to sell a darn thing to anyone. So if you become a client of ours, you better believe that you are now a part of our family. And we treat you like so. And that's because we know that this is not just your money, it's your life. Again, you're not here to look at charts and graphs, even though we might show you some. You're here because you want this to reflect positively back on your life, your spouse's life, your children's lives, generations to come. That's why we love getting up in the morning to help you with this. That's why we do what we do. And we will never forget where we started. What we do is we focus on your goals to guide you toward your ideal retirement. And this means that we have to use a multifaceted approach. In 2011, we were founded to provide comprehensive guidance to solve all of the needs retirees and pre-retirees face, offering independent and fiduciary guidance and planning to really ultimately give you the confidence that you need to step into the next act of your life. This process begins with something that I think is very pragmatic and logical. It's examining the purpose of our money and asking the question of ourselves, what do we need our money to do for us? Now, the issue that many people face is this is a moving target. There's a lot of different things you want your money to do for you. You might want to be able to rely on it for a secure income stream because you know Social Security and your pension is not going to be enough when you retire. You might want it to grow. You might want to make sure that if you get sick in retirement, you're going to have enough money to pay for health care. You might want to make sure that your spouse is going to be taken care of if something happens to you. You might want to make sure that you can leave a tax-advantaged legacy. Any of these things are totally understandable to want. Most people go to an advisor, and the problem with our industry is that these advisors, number one, are not knowledgeable enough to provide this advice, but number two, they don't care. They don't want to provide this advice. All they want to do is put you in investments and charge you a fee. Well, for us, we look at this as a holistic plan, and it comes from where I came from. And how we approach this is we simply use the right tool for the right job. You can have multiple targets. You just have to use different tools to achieve different outcomes. But once we know what the target is, it all comes down to using the proper tool. I'll give you an example. If I'm building a house, I'm not going to use my hammer when I'm putting in the plumbing for my toilet. I'll probably have some problems if I do that. There's going to be times when I use a Phillips head screwdriver. There's going to be times when I use a saw. You're never going to hear me say I love or hate any investment or insurance vehicle. If you hear people say that on the news, on TV, on the radio, it's usually because they're captive or they've got some sort of marketing angle. What matters is whether or not each of these pieces make up an effective whole to give you the confidence you need to enter this next stage in your life, or if you're already there, to fix these threats that currently exist. The value of working with somebody who's independent and fiduciary is this. By remaining independent, we have access to the entire toolbox, which means we can use the hammer, we can use the saw, we can use the Phillips head screwdriver. This is diametrically opposed to most of these investment firms that are out there, because if all that you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And we have access to the entire toolbox, which gives us the ability to truly combine products and services together to provide you a custom-tailored solution. But it doesn't stop there. As a fiduciary firm, Crown Haven is legally obligated to act in your best interests. And if you become a client, we sign paperwork that states this to you. There's two standards of care in financial services: suitability and fiduciary. Suitability is a very low bar. Suitability is you come into my office with $100,000 and you say, I want to invest in the color yellow because I've seen the color yellow has been doing well for the past 2 weeks. And I think to myself as a suitability advisor, wow, color yellow pays me 5% when I invest you in color yellow. Well, a week later, color yellow drops by 40%. And you come back to me and you say, hey, Casey, I just lost $40,000, excuse me. And I look back at you and I say, well, sorry, when you came in here, it was a suitable investment for you. And by the way, if you look at the bottom of your statement, you'll see that investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. Sorry. Well, a fiduciary advisor, if you come in to the same office and say, I'd like to invest in the color yellow, I think that's a good idea, I'm going to say, excuse me, slow your roll. Do we have to sell red in order to buy yellow? And what are the tax consequences of selling red? How does this affect your income plan? What about your risk capacity, which is totally different than your risk tolerance, by the way. Your risk capacity is how much risk can you actually take? You know, so all of these different decisions have ripple effects. That's a fiduciary firm. And the way I look at it, and the way I would imagine you would want me to look at it, is I leverage my expertise and I put myself in your shoes and design a plan as if your money were my money, so that I can design a plan that is reliable for the rest of your life, leveraging my knowledge so that I would create a plan that I would create for myself, because who else would I create a better plan for than myself? And that's how I look at this. How we do this, ultimately, requires that we understand each client on a very personal level, which is also why we call our first visit a relationship visit. It's our goal to understand what matters to you so that I can focus on the things that I can control so that we can get your ideal result. So there are things that we can control and there are things that we can't. We can control the risk we take. We can control the fees that we pay. We can control how we set up our accounts from a tax perspective. We can control how we take distributions. We can control how we set up our legacy. We can control how we pay for healthcare and long-term healthcare costs. We can control all of these things. But we can't control, for example, inflation or cost of goods. But we sure as heck can control all these other things. So my job is to understand what matters to you and focus with extreme intensity on what we can control so that we get the result you deserve. And then if we kind of go backwards from where we just came from, as long as I do that, acting in a capacity where I'm looking at your best interests, if I'm independent, I've got access to the entire toolbox, it allows me to craft a completely custom-tailored plan in your best interests that fits your unique needs. That's exactly what we do. How we do it is we go through our Retire Shield process. This is a proprietary process that we have trademarked. There are 5 distinct areas that we cover in our Retire Shield, and there are 5 distinct steps. I'm going to go through the areas first. The first area, and these areas are sequential, and we have triaged them in order not of importance, but of things that we need to take care of first in order to get to the next step. The first step is always secure income planning. Why is secure income planning the first step? Well, because we really don't care about how many taxes we're paying if we don't have secure income. If we can't afford milk, we're not worried about taxes. So what do I mean by secure income? I mean sources of income that come from something secure. So Social Security, pensions, and most people know or feel like Social Security and pensions are just not going to cut the mustard. So we look at your income before you were retired and your income now with your defined benefits, secure income, Social Security and pensions, and we determine what that gap is. And then what we do is we look at your investments and we determine what portion of those investments need to be turned into secure income so that you have a very strong foundation. It's the same thing as building a house. You don't build the second floor until you've got a strong foundation. That's what we do when we talk about secure income planning. That leads us to our cohesive investment strategy. And I want you to imagine a 3-bucket approach. The first bucket is a 0 to 1% return, and it's only there for emergency funds because you need to be able to handle whatever comes your way in life. The second bucket is our secure income bucket, and it's designed to grow, provide income, and provide a legacy. We need that to be full because we need to have a foundational structure for income that's going to be there for as long as you live and there as long as your spouse lives. The third bucket is the risk bucket. That's also the bucket that fees are charged from. Now, what makes us different at Crown Haven is that most advisors want to put all of your money in the third bucket, and then they put you in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, etc., call you diversified to make you feel good, and then they charge you a fee on all of it. And they completely ignore bucket number 1 and bucket number 2. We know, not only from just common sense, but all of our training that we've done, that the much better way to approach this is to ensure that you have enough money in emergency funds and enough money to live on before we even talk about bucket number 3. So that's what we do. We make sure bucket number 1 is full and bucket number 2 is full before we even get to bucket number 3. And then if there is a reason, maybe liquidity or growth, maybe better growth, to look at bucket number 3, we'll look at that. And that's our cohesive investment strategy. Once we can breathe, we kind of sit back and relax, then we start looking at advanced tax planning. There are multiple areas that we can help with this. One great example is if you've been saving in a 401k or IRA, your intention was to defer your tax liability until you retire with the idea that when you do retire, your tax bracket is going to be much lower. Well, that doesn't work if taxes go up. And do we think taxes are going to go down or go up in the future? They're probably going to go up. So how can we mitigate that? There are strategies we can use. There are other things that are issues now. January 1st of 2020, the Secure Act was passed, which eliminated the stretch IRA. This is a major problem for folks that want to leave IRAs to children or other non-spouse beneficiaries. We have ways of circumventing that. So once we know that you're safe and you're in a position where you've got your secure income planning, cohesive investment strategy, we're going to start systematically taking care of these tax needs. Then we talk about long-term healthcare planning. This is the 5,000-pound gorilla in the room that nobody wants to talk about because it's the worst-case scenario. But in our worst-case scenario, we want to make sure that creditors can't access your money. We want to make sure that everything you worked for isn't wiped away in the blink of an eye because you end up in a long-term care facility or you need home health care or something of that nature. So we, at the very least, want to make sure your creditor protected. In the best case scenario, we want to make sure that the plan we've put in place for you is paying for itself so that you have long-term care coverage. And there are ways we can do that. Finally, we look at proactive legacy and estate planning. I've never met anybody in my life that wants to leave all of their money to the government. I've also never met anybody that wants to deal with lawyers or court costs or probate when somebody that they love has just died. And unfortunately, this happens to families all over the country all the time because of a lack of planning. So we want to make sure, at the very least, that your funds are probate protected, so that if something happens to the person you love, your spouse, you don't have to deal with a bunch of attorneys, pay a bunch of fees, go to court, settle an estate. We want that to go directly to you, to your heirs, efficiently, without delay, so that you can get on with your life. How we go about this is the first visit is called a relationship visit, and I very much look forward to sitting down with you in a few minutes and learning about you. It's to build trust and shared values. I want to understand you, what matters to you, so that I can control what we can control, so that I can deliver a retirement that you deserve. If you like what I have to say, and most people do, we move on to the diagnostic phase. If you look at me as a doctor, this is kind of where we diagnose the issues. We look at all of the different areas, from income planning to legacy planning, and we determine where threats exist and where opportunities could arise from. Then we show you. And just like a doctor's office, we'll prescribe medication. We'll say, hey, this is what you can do to help yourself. And just like a patient, you can decide whether or not you want to take the medication or not. If you decide that you want to work with us, we implement it. Once we implement it, you can consider yourself shielded. And when you are shielded, that doesn't stop our involvement. We continually care and monitor for your accounts. And an example of this is something that we were able to do this past year, where when the coronavirus initially hit, everybody was worried about their life savings, losing money. Number one, our phones were not ringing. All of our clients were happy and they knew they were safe and okay. But number two, because of the fact that the 10-year Treasury yield went from about 1.62% to 0.5% overnight, I was falling asleep one night and I said, hey, I wonder if this could affect any of our clients in a positive way. I reached out to one of my advisors. I said, I need you to cross-reference all of our accounts that may have this inverse correlation. They cross-referenced it because of the systems that we have, and because we're not all worried about sitting down and selling stuff to people all day. We actually had the time to do it. By the way, we were remote when we did this. Then another one of my advisors reached out to 187 families and let them know that they could lock in, and by lock in I mean the gain never goes away, they could lock in a return between 10 and 15% just by what we noticed with regard to the 10-year Treasury yield. So how would you like to have had a call back in April, instead of worrying about what was happening in the market, but from a firm that truly cares about you saying, hey, how'd you like an extra $50,000 added to your account? That's the type of continual care and monitoring that we provide for our clients on a daily basis. So, I can't wait to sit down with you. We're completely transparent, and this is why I tell you all of this up front. And I look forward to sitting with you and understanding your needs, what you're trying to accomplish, and how we can help you achieve the retirement you deserve through our Retire Shield process. I very much look forward to sitting down with you.